Art west of the Mississippi used to be limited by tradition, and it was considered out of the mainstream by the rest of American art. But there is a renaissance in contemporary art in the West, as exemplified by the first Western States Biennial Exhibition. No longer bound by traditional outlooks or by strictly Western subject matter, this exhibition brings together some of the finest creativity to be found in America. And the fact of the matter is, these artists simply live in the West, but they're creating for all of the world.
Yeah, that's close enough.
The landscape as a subject has been used in the art of Western man for several hundred years. With a unique and highly imaginative photographic approach, Miro Mahaffey has not duplicated, but has given his own interpretation to the landscape of the American West.
I've been coming out to this country, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, ever since I was a child. I probably recall spending times out with my father as early as 3 years old. I've been a traveler, and the fact that I live in Arizona had just made it possible for me to see Arizona and Utah and Colorado all the better. Much of the feeling I have out here comes close to being religious feeling. I look at the rock formations, I'm aware of the millions of years it took to create them. I read them as a history of creation. I feel very insignificant in the middle of it, of course. I just think my responsibility is to create some kind of strong image on canvas, and then people will find their own way of responding to it. I think probably what's most interesting about the colors I work with and other artists that live out in this area is that our colors seem to be really bright. The brightness of my color, to me, is just imitating nature. So I think I do exaggerate it for some expressive reason. I've never had much interest in recreating the Old West, maybe because it's been done by artists so well that there's no reason to repeat it. And I guess I've sort of judged much of it as being just commercial painting, you know, trying to sell images of something that the Hollywood Westerns have already sold to us. So my interest has been just to interpret the landscape in some way that hasn't been done yet. Traditional realism can't show you as much about the Grand Canyon as I think I can by just pouring colors on a canvas and stratifying it and adding shadows and exaggerating the light and so on. I would like to have others look at my paintings and say that that painter knew what he was doing.
This is sculptor John Van Alstyne, a new artistic voice in the West. He's forming his unique piece, Gallery Ladder.
Well, I think the landscape has really been a pretty important part of
this whole business of living here in Laramie. It's really a different kind of space than I'm used to. I grew up in upstate New York and New England, where the space is very close, clustered, if anything, kind of vertical. Here, it's very horizontal, very expanding, very vast. Perhaps it hasn't really had an effect directly on the kinds of things that I'm building, but I think perhaps in 5 years it'll really come out more. Trying to break down the notion that sculpture is something, or art in general is something that has to be framed and put up on a pedestal. The gallery ladder, which is showing in the biennial, I'm trying to fuse the gallery space, that sanctioned white cube, with the actual work, using chalk line as well as steel there, and actually placing that on the wall so that the steel bar becomes a graphic element, much the way the chalk line is graphic, fuses that condition together.
Oh.
That looks pretty good. I don't know. That next one we'll have to get it just a little bit older.
A 75-year young visionary, a man ahead of his time, Vance Kirkland.
Although I've been in Denver for 50 years, I first realized that all the paintings that had been done in the West were concerned with the mountains, the yellow aspen trees, and the local environment of landscape, and I knew immediately, plus the cowboy and Indians, this is not the way I wanted to react to nature or the West. There have been 8 different changes in my development. Each time I've taken something from the last time period and added it to what I'm doing now, so I could always keep growing out of myself. I have so many ideas to work with that I can keep young all the rest of my life also if I choose to do so. I don't want to dry up and blow away. I want to keep right on working. The energy of working gives me energy for living.
Do we want to keep this constant line here, or should we break it up a little bit?
I want to keep it very sharp because the rest of this is...
His courage and vision undiminished by a recent automobile accident, Mr. Kirkland continues his work, his eye and mind guiding the hands of a young assistant.
Every painting is thought out more or less in my mind before I start in to paint. And since I'm working with an idea of explosions of the sun, maybe 25 billion years BC, it's naturally imagination only. What thrills me the most is that the photographs in color of the sun show a darker red background with light red scarlet dots on it, and yellow and white dots of explosions of the sun. Now this has been through photography, but my paintings might have been done 10 years ago. I feel that I've been able to say something that I've never been able to say before. I only wish that I could do paintings a little bit larger than this, but physically this is about as far as I can go, because the height is, I'm limited to the height as far as getting them through the doors here and out of the building. I like the vibration of all the colors. It doesn't always happen that way, but in this painting and the one over there, I believe, both of them say exactly what I started out to say, which happen to be explosions of the sun 50 billion years BC.
A seeking for more emotion in her work, Beth Ames Swartz uses art as a model for human behavior, creating disorder by mutilation and destruction by fire. Then, a rebirth, a reordering. Here's the beginning of a composition.
After the mutilation, which is a form of disordering, I fire the mutilations. And then I finally reorder after the disordering or the death and the firing. I start to use glue and the natural elements around my home, the earth. and then I use paint and layers of paper, and I work outside for over a month until they're finished. In a sense, when I burnt away a lot of my past, I brought forward the things that I needed for the new life or the rebirth. So in many ways, I feel I've died a lot of times and been reborn. I'm sure I would have matured as an artist in another way if I had remained in New York. Moving out to the desert 20 years ago, it began to seep into my consciousness. I always seem to come back to the desert, and it gives me comfort and solace. If I had one thing I wanted to share with the world, I guess it would be if things start falling apart, that it's okay, because we can put them back together in a new way, and that sometimes it's the best thing for us, for our growth, to let things fall apart and allow the disintegration or the mutilation or the disordering, and then we can put them together into a new reordering. And to me, that's what life is all about, not being afraid to risk and share that risk with other people we love and care about.
It's difficult to say why success comes to one painter and conceivably not to another. I think the greatest guarantee that any artist has is his work. You've got to paint and keep on painting.
Fritz Scholder paints traditional Western subjects in a most untraditional way.
Paradox is my favorite word, really, for all of life. I am constantly interested in the ironies and the different contrasts that I see everywhere. The minute you say one thing, you can say exactly the opposite. I deny making statements, and yet the minute I lift up a brush, the minute I choose a color for a canvas, it's going to make a statement, just because I have chosen it. And I like that kind of power because it's power of being God. If I want a pink background, I put a pink background. If I don't like that, I can put a purple one or do whatever I want. I can destroy this painting. I can take it to the brink of disaster. I can not even start it. And I like it that way. I am a rebel. I think that an artist really can't deny his environment. And when I see the mountains and the desert, it certainly does go into the work some way. If nothing else, the sunlight. So, in a way, the colors of the paintings, I think, reflect the southwest sun, just as the Impressionists were affected by the light of south of France. It seems to me this is why I have the colors I have, because of being here in Arizona. Artists love life so much. They love the physical. What they do is produce physical objects, paintings. They love all the sensual factors of life. And so death is really my only hang-up. Painting is my whole life. It is what I am. And I must do what I do. I paint completely for myself. I'm pleased that there are those people who are on the same wavelength and who also are able to get with what I'm doing.
This man walking along the streets of El Paso, Texas, is Luis Jimenez, artist and sculptor.
This is the progress tube being cast, and the process is very traditional. Everything I do is pretty much a traditional process, except that the materials are all, borrowed from industry. The clay is really the most time-consuming portion. I've got probably about, I would say, between 8 and 9 months worth of work in the clay portion of the vaquero that you can see. It's very time-consuming because, you're trying to work up the piece the way it should be, and so you might go back, you might change things. I had to incline the body more, I had to change the position of the man. All of those things take place in the clay. Once the molds have been made, from then on it's just pretty much a mechanical process, and that goes really fast until you get to the painting. And then in the painting you again are involved with art and something that means revision and doing it, and then maybe having to do it over again, and especially to the way I paint, which is building up layers of paint. What I'm doing right now is making what I feel is American art. Formally, I want the pieces to work as sculpture also, and so it's very important that, this piece is sort of a total explosion. Only the hooves of the cow touch, only the hooves of the horse touch, and it's part of the experience of the piece that people can walk underneath and can look at it. The fact that I'm working in plastic says something about our culture. I think that people would have a sense of what it was like to be in this time. I came back out to the Southwest because I felt that there was a really rich imagery out there, and it was really an important part of America, because the United States doesn't end at the Hudson.
Denver, Colorado, opening night, the first Western States Biennial Exhibition. From here, the show will travel to Washington, San Francisco, Hawaii, Newport Beach, and Normal, Illinois. Governor Lamb of Colorado expresses the concept of a renaissance in art originating in America's West.
The West is a unique part of America. I suppose every section of the country feels themselves unique, but there is a definite Western tradition that has really never been adequately reflected in the art of America. It just seems to me that this is fitting and proper, that somebody focuses on that unique area of geography, which is part of the geography of hope of all America, called the West. And I think it's a very important contribution.
Never seen anything like it before, that's for sure.
I think the energy level is what hits me the first.
It's really great. She likes it too.
It's a little far out, right. It's different, very different.
A stage struck. It looks like I want to walk up it.
Well, it's not one I would choose for my living room, but I can see a lot of work.
Why, it would scare the bejesus out of everyone who came in the door.
Very clean, sort of.
And when I walked into this room and saw this thing right here, my heart just started going crazy. I was in heaven.
Big action. And the red eyes get me.
I think it's very unusual, and I wonder if he baked the whole thing in an oven.
It's not my type of art at all. I'm an 18th century man myself.
He sure did rope that cow.
Robert A. Ewing, coordinator of Art Network Western States Biennial, Western States Arts Foundation.
The artists are so diverse and so exciting. I think the vitality, the variety, the contrast, one of the things I love about it is that there isn't one style and there isn't one scale. Things range from 22 feet to 6 inches, from classic abstraction to fool-the-eye realism. I also think that the vitality of the West is in it, which I like very much. The whole point of the exhibition is that quality work is being done in the West, which should be seen all over the United States, and I think the show shows us that.
This first biennial is very important, for it will bring to the 28 artists from 13 Western states represented in the show the broad recognition and national exposure which they deserve. Their creative approaches make them citizens of the world, not just of a region. In sculpture, painting, and mixed media, they have brought us a kaleidoscopic view of a fresh Western outlook in the visual arts.